Ever wonder what happens when Hollywood bets big and loses even bigger? Imagine a world where a single flop can crush careers, bankrupt studios, and turn legendary stars into Hollywood exiles. The 1960s weren't just about swinging music and wild fashion. They were an era of movie-making risks and spectacular disasters. Today, we're digging up the cinematic graves to unearth the top 15 underrated 1960s flops. Films that tanked so hard, even their stars tried to forget them. Some were too bold for their time, others sabotaged from within. Which movie destroyed a studio? Which was buried by scandal? Stick around. You won't believe these behind-the-scenes stories. Number 15. King Rat, 1965. King Rat isn't just another World War II flick. This one is bleak, brutal, and about as far from a rah-rah war fantasy as you can get. Based on James Clavell's semi-autobiographical novel, the story drops you into the filthy, hopeless world of a Japanese POW camp in Singapore. George Segal plays Corporal King, a prisoner who manages to thrive by hustling, scamming, and never looking back. There are no heroes here, only survivors. And that didn't go over too well with audiences in the mid-60s, who were still clinging to the idea of the noble soldier. Denholm Elliott, who plays Larkin, had real-life POW experience, adding a grim authenticity that hits hard. Director Brian Forbes nearly broke down shooting the film, and after 62 grueling days, he admitted he could barely speak about it without choking up. Studios didn't know how to sell such a harsh story, so they just marketed it like a standard war movie. The result? A box office bomb. In some countries, it was outright banned for its portrayal of British officers. Over time, though, King Rat has found its audience. Film buffs who appreciate its honesty and unflinching depiction of what war really does to people. For the mainstream in 1965, though, it was just too much reality. Number 14. Major Dundee, 1965. Major Dundee is what happens when a director and a studio go to war. Sam Peckinpah, fresh off a string of gritty TV westerns, finally got his shot at a big studio picture. The plan? Make a Civil War western epic with all the blood, sweat, and dirt you could handle. Instead, he blew past every deadline and ignored every budget constraint until the producers wanted his head. The only thing that saved him was Charlton Heston, who gave up his salary to keep Peckinpah in charge, but even he eventually threatened him with a sword. Yes, a real sword, if he didn't get it together. The chaos wasn't just behind the scenes. The script was rewritten constantly, and the whole production was plagued by drunken blow-ups and fights. When the studio finally had enough, they yanked the movie away, chopped it up in the editing room, and released a version Peckinpah didn't even recognize. Critics and audiences both shrugged, and the movie flopped. Peckinpah spent years calling Major Dundee the most painful experience of his career. Ironically, years later, fans started piecing together the restored cut, and the film is now seen as a fascinating, messy, misunderstood masterpiece. But back then, it was just another expensive mistake that nearly ended Peckinpah's big-screen career before it began. Number 13. The Train, 1964. The Train is a war movie where nothing is faked. Every crash, every explosion, every bullet is the real deal. The story's simple. Burt Lancaster is a French resistance fighter tasked with stopping the Nazis from stealing priceless art on a real moving train. But what happened behind the scenes was crazier than anything in the script. Lancaster clashed with the original director, Arthur Penn, and fired him just days in, bringing in John Frankenheimer to ramp up the action. Then, he insisted on doing all his own stunts, blowing out his knee and halting production for weeks. The film's budget ballooned. The French Rail Authority had to literally blow up real tracks, and the whole crew lived in a state of controlled chaos. The result? A film that looks massive because it was massive. No models, no CGI, just brute force filmmaking. But American audiences didn't care. Released during a glut of World War II movies, it was dismissed as just another action flick and failed at the box office. Nowadays, The Train is a cult favorite among cinephiles and directors alike. If you want to see real trains explode and stunts you could never get away with today, this is your movie. Just don't expect a happy ending, on or off screen. Number 12. 55 Days at Peking, 1963. This is a movie where the scale is so huge, it practically sank itself. 55 Days at Peking wanted to be the international epic to end all epics. Charlton Heston and David Niven lead a multinational force trying to hold out against the Boxer Rebellion. The cast is massive, the sets are gigantic, and the ambition is through the roof. But the problems were even bigger. Behind the scenes, it was a disaster. Heston and Ava Gardner couldn't stand each other. Gardner walked off set and never returned. Director Nicholas Ray collapsed from exhaustion and had to be replaced. Producer Samuel Bronston fought with everyone and ended up banned from Hollywood. Oh, and the whole thing was shot in Spain, which looked nothing like China. The Chinese government banned it for good measure. Critics called it bloated and soulless, and audiences weren't interested in a movie about a forgotten historical event. It flopped hard, losing millions. Today, it's barely a footnote in film history, except as a case study in how not to make a blockbuster. Still, if you want to see old Hollywood go down swinging, 55 Days at Peking is an unforgettable mess. Number 11, The Bridge at Remagin, 1969. You want a war film with real-life drama? The Bridge at Remagin delivered in spades, just not in the way anyone wanted. The production was set in Czechoslovakia during a time of growing political unrest. Right in the middle of shooting, Soviet tanks literally rolled into Prague. Suddenly, the cast and crew had to drop everything and flee for their lives, leaving behind half-finished sets and unfinished scenes. The chaos hit everyone hard. George Segal, the lead, had a breakdown and almost quit acting entirely. Robert Vaughn, an outspoken Vietnam War critic, was nearly arrested on suspicion of being an American spy. When the movie finally limped to release, audiences barely noticed. The timing was terrible, and the film was overshadowed by other, bigger war movies. The Bridge at Remagin was quietly shelved, but for anyone who digs into it today, it's a gritty, underappreciated film with a production story that's crazier than the movie itself. Sometimes real life is wilder than fiction, and this one paid the price. Number 10, The Sand Pebbles, 1966. If there's a movie that proves star power isn't always enough, it's The Sand Pebbles. Steve McQueen is at his absolute best, playing an American sailor caught in the political chaos of 1920s China. The film had everything: McQueen's only Oscar nomination, huge set pieces, and sweeping romance. But the trouble started almost immediately. The production was a nightmare. Shot in Taiwan during monsoon season, half the cast got sick, typhoons shut down filming, and McQueen went full method, clashing constantly with director Robert Wise. The tone of the movie confused everyone. Some saw it as pro-imperialist, others as a quiet anti-war statement. No one could agree, and that division tanked its reputation. The film underperformed in the US, and its hefty budget made it a financial disappointment. Still, The Sand Pebbles is worth a revisit for McQueen's performance and its honest look at American intervention overseas. But in 1966, audiences weren't ready for that conversation, and the film paid the price. Number 9, The Secret War of Harry Frig, 1968. On paper, The Secret War of Harry Frig sounds like a can't-miss comedy. Paul Newman as a promoted buck private, parachuted behind enemy lines to rescue 5 captured generals, should be gold. Instead, it's one of the oddest misfires of Newman's career. His first full-out comedy, the movie never quite decides what it wants to be: spoof, satire, or slapstick. The result is a tonal mess. Director Jack Smite had worked well with Newman before, but here, the magic just isn't there. The jokes don't land, the plot bounces all over the place, and even the usually reliable Newman can't save it. Critics panned it. Roger Ebert said it seemed like the movie was made against its own will. Audiences ignored it, and the movie quickly disappeared from theaters. In hindsight, it's a fascinating oddity, proof that even a superstar can't rescue a script that doesn't know what it wants to be. The Secret War of Harry Frig is mostly forgotten now, except by die-hard Newman fans and lovers of lost cinema. Number 8, Play Dirty, 1969. Here's a war movie that's as cold and mean as they come. Play Dirty stars Michael Caine in one of his grimiest roles ever, leading a team of British commandos disguised as Italians to blow up a German oil depot in North Africa. It's nihilistic, ruthless, and totally unromantic. Nobody here is fighting for glory or country, just survival and maybe a little payback. The production was just as rough. Director André de Toth, a one-eyed Hollywood legend, delivered his final film and pulled no punches. The movie's violence and amorality put off audiences in 1969, and it bombed at the box office. Critics called it mean-spirited and ugly, and it faded into obscurity almost immediately. But Play Dirty had its champions. Martin Scorsese singled it out as one of the great anti-war films, precisely because it's so unsentimental. If you want a war movie that shows just how low people can sink, this is the one. But in the age of flag-waving heroics, it was way too ahead of its time. Number 7. Attack on the Iron Coast, 1968. If you're looking for a no-frills, down-to-earth war film, Attack on the Iron Coast is the hidden gem you've never heard of. This British production stars Lloyd Bridges as a Canadian commando leading a raid on a Nazi-held dockyard, based on the real-life Operation Chariot, one of the gutsiest missions of WSQ. There's no Hollywood bombast here, no huge budget or epic score. Instead, it's all about tension, strategy, and grit. And that's probably why it disappeared. The film had almost no marketing, barely got a release in the US, and was quickly forgotten. No one wanted a grounded, realistic war movie in 1968. They wanted spectacle. But for fans who stumble across it today, Attack on the Iron Coast is a tight, suspenseful action film that respects its subject matter and never goes over the top. Sometimes being too real is a recipe for box office disaster. Number 6. The Night of the Generals, 1967. This is a war movie wrapped inside a murder mystery, stuffed with more stars than a Hollywood Walk of Fame party. The Night of the Generals boasts Peter O'Toole, Omar Sharif, and Donald Pleasance in a tangled plot about a Nazi general who might be a serial killer. It's big, ambitious, and a total oddity. But the movie's ambition was its undoing. The plot is convoluted, the pacing uneven, and the tone all over the map. Critics were baffled, audiences stayed away, and the film disappeared into late-night TV rotation. The studio lost millions, and the film became shorthand for overcooked and underloved. And yet, there's something hypnotic about The Night of the Generals. The cast is stellar, the set piece is impressive, and the central mystery keeps you guessing. If you want to see what happens when Hollywood tries to blend genres and fails spectacularly, this is a must-see. Number 5. The Swimmer, 1968. You've never seen anything quite like The Swimmer. Burt Lancaster stars as a suburban man who decides one day to swim home through every pool in his wealthy neighborhood. What starts as a surreal odyssey becomes a disturbing portrait of the American dream unraveling. The production was a mess, directors fired, reshoots galore, and a tone that veers from dreamy to nightmarish. Audiences in 1968 had no idea what to make of it. Critics were split, box office returns were dismal, and the film was quickly buried. But The Swimmer refused to die. Over the years, it became a cult classic, beloved for its weirdness and emotional punch. Lancaster delivers one of his greatest performances, and the film's haunting atmosphere sticks with you. Back in the 60s, though, it was just another flop that nobody understood. Number 4. Charlie, 1968. Before Forrest Gump, there was Charlie, a heartbreaking adaptation of the novel Flowers for Algernon. Cliff Robertson plays a mentally disabled man who undergoes an experimental procedure to become a genius, only to watch his new life slip away. The film is raw, emotional, and at times hard to watch. Robertson's performance won him an Oscar, but the movie itself was a tough sell. The subject matter was bleak, the ending devastating, and audiences just weren't in the mood for this kind of heavy drama. The film's pacing and style also felt out of step with the era's tastes, leading to a disappointing box office run. Today, Charlie is recognized for its bold storytelling and powerful message. But in 1968, it was a box office disaster that left its studio reeling and its star typecast in tragic roles. Number 3. Cleopatra, 1963. Here's the one that didn't just flop, it obliterated a studio. Cleopatra started as a modest biopic and exploded into a $44 million monster, over $400 million today with inflation. Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton, and Rex Harrison star in a tale of ancient intrigue that became infamous for its behind-the-scenes disasters. Taylor almost died, directors got fired, Sets were rebuilt multiple times, and Taylor and Burton's affair became a tabloid sensation. The movie took years to finish and nearly bankrupted 20th Century Fox. Studio heads were fired, the lot was sold off, and Cleopatra became shorthand for Hollywood excess. Despite a strong opening, it couldn't possibly recoup its costs and was considered one of the biggest flops ever, at least financially. And yet, the film's spectacle, costumes, and campy drama are legendary. It's so much more than a punchline. Cleopatra is a cautionary tale, a time capsule, and the kind of glorious disaster only Hollywood could make. But if you're wondering how to destroy a studio in one go, this is the blueprint. Number 2. The Loved One, 1965. Hollywood loves to satirize itself, but sometimes the joke lands with a thud. The Loved One is based on Evelyn Waugh's caustic novel, taking aim at the funeral business, Hollywood, and American culture in general. It's packed with talent, Jonathan Winters, Rod Steiger, John Gielgud, but its pitch-black humor left audiences cold. Director Tony Richardson wanted to push boundaries, but the result was a movie too weird and mean-spirited for mainstream success. Critics were baffled, censors bristled, and audiences stayed away in droves. The movie was quickly shelved and only gained a cult following decades later. But if you like your comedy twisted, The Loved One is a hidden gem, an acid trip through Tinseltown's underbelly. In 1965, though, it was too much, too soon, and too strange for the mainstream to handle. Number 1. Petulia, 1968. Rounding out the list is Petulia, Richard Lester's dazzling but downbeat look at love and disillusionment in swinging San Francisco. Julie Christie stars as a restless housewife who gets tangled up with George C. Scott's lonely doctor. The editing is wild, the visuals are trippy, and the script is brutally honest about broken relationships. The film was praised by critics for its bold style and emotional depth, but general audiences didn't know what to make of it. Released at the end of a turbulent decade, Petulia was drowned out by bigger, flashier movies and quietly flopped. There was no Oscar buzz, no big marketing push, just a movie that was ahead of its time, waiting for the world to catch up. Today, Petulia is recognized as a lost masterpiece, influential for directors who love to blur the line between story and sensation. But in 1968, it was a reminder that being brilliant doesn't always pay the bills. There you have it, the wildest, weirdest, and most disastrous flops of the 1960s, each with a story as dramatic as the films themselves. Sometimes, failure in Hollywood leads to cult classics, and sometimes it's just a lesson in survival. Which of these underrated gems deserves a comeback? Let us know your pick in the comments below. If you enjoyed our cinematic deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow movie buffs, and subscribe to our channel for more untold stories from Hollywood's hidden vaults. Thanks for watching. And remember, in the world of movies, even a flop can make history.